Hello all, welcome to another endgame study of the Solving Harder Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. Another composition from the Ukrainian chess composer Stanislav Belokon. Few pieces over the board, nevertheless, this doesn't make it even simple. And so, as always, I suggest you watch the guide so you are better prepared for the practice. If you already done that, then the 10 minutes countdown, the main one will start, and then I catch you up to start the guided solution. And let's go with the start of the solution. This time, normally I start with the first good move, normally a brilliant one, but this time I'm going to start with a blunder. But before going for the blunder, let's analyze the position very fast. In one side, we can see, okay, black is threatening to promote the pawn to a queen in one move, and there's no way white can reach it in time, so it's a fact that this will happen. On the other side, we have a pawn, and of course, bishop and knight are enough to beat the king, but against a queen, it's impossible. So we need to keep the pawn and try to promote it to go for a draw, otherwise, we are going to lose. So it's white to play and to draw. And the first move and the line that I also fall into was to advance the pawn, and this is a big blunder. But let's find out together why this is a big blunder. The first minutes countdown will start now, so the short one, pause if you need for more, and find what move black needs to do to keep going for the win from here. And the only move, the only possible move for black to win this one is to go with the king f6, so staying connected to the pawn. But before going to that line, let's see what happens if black promotes to a queen. Well, over here, I think we can find it more easily. The pawn advances, so now our knight is controlling the promotion square, so we are threatening to promote in one. And so black needs to go with shakes, but after a while, the shakes will end up, and of course, black can't grab the pawn because as soon as black decides, okay, I can't be here checking forever and takes the pawn, well, it drops it to a simply fork. And so, next move, white just grabs the queen and we get this forced draw. There's no material to win in any side. So, this doesn't happen for black with the promotion. Of course, other moves like king f8, that looks also similar to king f6 also draw, but this will transpose to the main line, so we are going to see it in a while. So let's go with main lines. The king moves to f6, and now it's impossible for white to survive. Maybe we try to advance the pawn one more. The king can take the knight because otherwise the pawn advance. But of course, black will go for a queen. And now we advance the pawn. But of course, with this check, it's different because the queen is now controlling the promotion square. The king is now threatening to take the knight. If the knight moves, then the king can take the pawn. And so it's game over for white, and black win this one if we advance the pawn. This was our mistake. And so the first move, the first good one, brilliant one in this open field of the board, it's to go with the knight f5, double exclamation mark, brilliant one. Let's go for a draw from here. Of course, the first idea that comes to mind is black can't go with e6 because otherwise we just check the king and grab the pawn in the next move, so we get a win better than a draw. And so the king has few options to go. I'm drawing arrows to every other that is possible. And so the thing that happens if the king goes away, the same goes with the d7. It's a similar one. I can show that one better probably. Now we advance the pawn, and when black promotes, we advance the pawn again. And now it's impossible for black to stop. Why? Because if you notice, well, let's go with the first move. The queen checks our king, the king moves, and notice that, okay, the queen is now controlling the promotion of the pawn, but can't move anywhere, otherwise I can really promote it. And white has a simple idea. If black doesn't progresses, it will bring the bishop as soon as possible to the other diagonal and force the promotion, or to the other side if the queen moves away. So here we would need to use the king if we were black, but notice that the bishop is controlling one square, the knight is controlling the other one. The king can go around, but it takes a lot of time. And if the king goes with the mistake of going to e6, then falls into this skewer, and when the king moves away, it could take the knight, whatever. It's going to be lost anyway. So as you can see, the threat of promoting and getting a skewer maybe gives black some ideas. Let's go into the front of the pawn, so force white to move. And of course, over here, we could just move the king. Black can't force any more progression from here. But of course, black is threatening to first go with the king e6 and then maneuver against our knight. So let's go with the bishop to the other side and notice what happens. We are now threatening again a skewer if the king goes to e6, and I don't think black can go much more. We are going to force the draw from more or less time, and of course here probably the queen takes the knight, and this is a draw. So this was if the king move away from the check, move away to the d file. So the king needs to come, of course, to the other side, to f8. So staying in the range of the pawn. That's the only possible way for the king to go on. So now it's us to play again. It's white to play again, going for the draw. We advance the pawn, we get the queen over the board, and now, again, an easy move, checking the king, and the king goes in front of the pawn. And so it's now white to play and find the best continuation for white from here. And when we are in such an inferior position, normally we need to search to coordinate our pieces, forming a fortress or something that makes it very hard for the opponent to break. And correct move over here, the one that keeps the pieces together, is to go with the bishop g6 exclamation mark. Notice that the bishop is protecting the knight and the knight is protecting the pawn. At the same time, the enemy king can't move because at the moment is controlled by the enemy pieces, and so white needs to do something. But going with checks doesn't work. Of course, if it was white to move again, would be better for black. And that's with that idea in mind that black finds a really hard idea. That's why the guided solution is so important. It's to play the queen to b2. And now it's white to move, and one more minute for you, and then I'll catch you up to go on with the guided solution. And yes, as you can see over here, the queen is controlling every other square except one for the king. So if we move the pieces, if we move, of course, the pawn we can't move. If we move any of the pieces, so if we move the knight, you lose the pawn, or the king takes the pawn, whatever. If you move the bishop, then probably the queen can check and go after the knight, something like that. So you need to be careful over here. So the only possible way for white to continue is to move away the king, but then the queen does the same again, and then the king moves, and then goes same again, and this will end up forever. So final moment for you, find a way to get out of this one. It's white to play and to draw. And okay, if you go with the king to the corner, well, this is just a mistake. We are going to be, of course, placed in a situation where now white needs to move, and whatever move white does, it's going to lose the game. Notice that the king now is cornered, it can't move, but the white pieces are forced to move away. And as soon as they are not coordinate, notice that the bishop now is under attack, it's game over for white. So the only smart move over here, and that was a bit tricky, and bringing you here without much slowness, so you can think too much, is to see that it was not a coincidence for the king and the queen being on these spots, because now we can go with a brilliant finish, which is to check the king. Of course, the king needs to accept, and as soon as he accepts, we have this fork, this interesting fork. Of course, now the king takes the pawn, but the knight takes the queen. And we get a draw. Endgame study solved. Hope you have enjoyed. Catch you up in future videos. Bye bye and keep checking.